Well, thank you for joining us once again on Game On Now. We promised you, following the two legendary strikers, a special interview with a legendary goalkeeper who's also gone on to do some sterling work as a coach and giving to the beautiful game, the beautifully South African game. That, of course, is Roger de Saar, who joins us. Roger, thank you so much for your time. Haven't seen you in a very long time. Tell us, where are you and how have you been?
Hi, first of all, thanks very much for the invite. It's great to be with you. I've been hearing your voice a couple of times, and I kind of wonder what you look like now. Yeah, I'm back in Cape Town, back home. It's been 4 or 5 years of crazy traveling and different countries, different continents. A fantastic experience. It's been fantastic for me. World Cup and Cup of Nations, Asian Cups, and whatever you want to call it, and. It's been good. Some top players, some top countries, and meeting some great people. And good to be back home.
It's interesting to see the journey from a coaching point of view, and not forgetting that you were a player who also did a lot internationally as well, but from just a coaching point of view, several clubs in South Africa and several journeys there and stories to tell. But like you say, there's the Champions League, there's your work abroad as well. Where would you say you've had your best time as a coach, or is it too soon to ask that question still yet?
No, it's definitely the right time. I'm considering maybe this is enough now, but look, every chapter has got story. Every chapter has got something that you meet and some experiences that you go through. Look, in my opinion, the World Cup is definitely the top. I mean, it's when you get to the World Cup and you're competing there and you're participating in that tournament, it's definitely it's just the epic. It's the top that you can reach, and you can feel it. All the players are good. There's no bad players in the World Cup. Everybody who's there is just sort of a notch above the rest. The organization, the way it's run, and everything else. So for me, the World Cup's been a fantastic experience. But then again, obviously, there's being an African. You kind of go to the African Cup of Nations, and it's like in Cameroon or whatever country you go to, and it's wow, something totally different. Then you can see the total diversity of top to bottom, when you get to those competitions as well. And but everywhere you go, it's been great. I mean, I worked in Iran, with the national team of Iran, and that was a good experience too. Egypt is something else. I mean, the vibe in Egypt is unbelievable. You've got to be there to believe it, to understand it, and you got to work there day in, day out. And when you work for the national team of Egypt, you actually realize what it's like to work for a proper national team. You can see everyone supports the national team. A little bit like the Springboks at the moment, I would say. It's like, it's sort of it's unbelievable. It's a great feeling, and Egypt for me was great. It was a great experience. I love the people, and of course Qatar was the money. It's unbelievable how they just sort of pay for everything, and they've been able to put on a fantastic World Cup, and to be able to experience all that, and obviously Portugal as well, and then of course back home South Africa. It's been great. I mean, that's where my real roots are and all my mates are, and then it's so good to be back home.
Well, over the years, we've always spoken about South African players going abroad. We're enjoying a rich period now for South African coaches where so many of you guys, more than usual, I think, over the years, have spent some time in North Africa, out in the Qatars of the world as such. Peter Masimani, another, Fadlu, another, and so many others as well. What is it about this current period in South African coaches and the ability to go and play your trade abroad?
Yeah, look, I think a lot of people ask me that question. They're like, well, what did you do? And, I arrived in, my first overseas trip was Portugal, and my first job was to put Ronaldo through the paces. And then you go, what did you do? I said, I just did exactly what I did to Joe Shabalala and Joe Smith. There's no difference. And I think if you just carry on doing the same thing, they really, there's nothing wrong with the work we do. It's actually very, very good. We're very good professionals, South Africans in general. If you go all over the world, not only do you see coaches, you see South Africans of all trades, pilots, doctors, engineers, whatever, mechanics, you name it, builders, and they're all there, and they work hard, and they're well respected really all over the world. There's not a place I went to that a South African tradesman was not respected. And it's no different being a football coach. I think we apply ourselves well. We've got a good work ethic. in general, we're good with people, I think, because we've got such a diverse country that we've learned to become good with people. And I think that helps us a lot too.
Now, I have to ask you from an African point of view, having gone through all the different stages, of course, from league football here in South Africa to Champions Leagues or CAF competitions, AFCONs, World Cups, how far are we from competing now from an African point of view with the best in the world?
Look, in some areas, I believe we're very, very close. We're there, but there are other areas that I think we're still lacking. Of course, I think our development structures have a long way to go. We all know that. We keep saying that, but we don't really do too much about it. And I think we've got a fantastic example of our rugby, and we should just emulate the rugby structures of the schools, the top schools, how they manage these young kids who go to top high schools. They get really looked after. They come out of school, 1 meter 90, 120 kilos with a fantastic education, with about 5 or 6 contract options to go to. And I think that's what rugby's done really, really well. We're in the football world, we're still concentrating so much on the top level, as called the PSL, that from there down, it's such a massive steps down that, our development has really got a long way to go. And that's what I found in other countries, like even Iran and Egypt, for example. Their development structures are pretty good. And that's why they keep producing, a very good national team and top players to go play abroad in Europe, And
I have to then ask you, sorry to jump in there, but I have to ask you of the initiative we've seen from CAF and the CAF president, Patrice Motsepe, over the last 2-3 years, where he's implemented CAF schools because in trying to aid in development. And basically what he said is he's taking the rugby formula in South Africa, where schools plays a big part in it, and applying it to school competitions all across the continent, where the South gets their best winners, the North and so on, and then they all play in one big tournament at the end of the tournament, so to speak. What do you think of that initiative from CAF to try and improve in the development side that you speak of?
Oh, look, it's obviously it's a starting point. It's trying to emulate something that's really worked, which is fantastic to see. But I think, if you want to compare us to rugby, it's the structures in rugby it's really down to the roots level. I mean, you go to a rugby school and you ask them to put up a soccer field, you'll get kicked out so quickly. You'll get arrested. You got no chance. And that's because of the history and everything else that's gone into it. So we're far away from that still. What we don't have, unfortunately, is we don't have sort of our top clubs really putting a lot of effort into our development structures. Why? Because it's cheaper to go into Central Africa and buy another player.
Sure.
So you get that a lot, especially in Africa. There's so much talent. So you go, why must I spend 5 years working with 20 kids, and I don't even know how many of those 20 are going to make it, when I can just go into Central Africa with half the money and I'll bring 5 ready-made, fantastic players done. I don't have to spend all that time and effort. So it becomes a little bit of a business scenario, and you can't blame him for thinking that way. Until the time comes where clubs get sort of paid back for their own development structures and developing their own talent. As South African clubs, you should get a bonus. You should get a tax exemption or whatever if you can produce local talent. As opposed to playing 5 foreigners and another 3 that have already become South Africans. That's not going to help us. You got to give him some kind of light at the end of the tunnel, so that clubs or companies or the industries, whatever, produce local talent. And we got to go that way. And we're not doing it. It's still too easy to jump over the border and bring ready-made stuff. It's far too easy. And that's what club owners do, and I'm sure if I was a club owner, I would also look at it that way.
Since the 90s, you've given a lot to the game as a player, then as a coach, and you still continue to. Long may your success continue with the game, and thank you so much for your time, Raj.